We got, you feel me, Crime House, you know what I'm saying? Coffee Crime House. Yeah, man, we got the case of Copper Hacker Orb. I remember seeing this meme of dude. I thought that's when memes and shit first started coming into play. Like I remember that's why I clicked the video because I seen dude as I remember seeing him back in the day, like when I was younger and shit. But I ain't never know what like the full story what happened with him. Like the dude that was on the news. I ain't never know what really the story behind this, you feel me? But I remember they had made memes and shit about him back in the day. Like shit. I don't even know what that shit is. Whoa. But yeah, man, we got Coffee House Crimes, man. That being said, let's go ahead and get into it. And make sure y'all subscribe to my second channel, you feel me, if you haven't already. Yeah, man, let's go ahead and get into it.
Now today, we'll be traversing the United States and following our prime suspect, who likes to lead a nomadic lifestyle. Now, right off the bat, despite lacking a fixed residence, Kai prefers to use the term home-free over homeless. Now, as you'll soon come to find out, it appears that this man means no harm to anyone. After all, he's a so-called free spirit. Just remember that next time someone tells you the same thing. Tucking into our story today, it was in the year 2013 when the city of New York woke up to a chilling story. On the morning of May the 13th, 2013, Joseph Galfi, a 73-year-old attorney, failed to show up to his workplace. What started as an ordinary Monday took a rather ominous turn when his secretary was unable to reach him. She began to panic when all of her calls were diverted to voicemail. That was because Joe was known for his unwavering punctuality, and so his absence soon sparked concern throughout the workplace. Now, Joe was an elderly man who also lived alone. And so, with his wise age, anything could happen. Fearing for his safety, the emergency services were called, and the police were dispatched to his home on Starlight Drive in Clark, New Jersey. Unfortunately, that routine wellness check they were planning for would never happen successfully, and that's because when they got to his property, they were greeted with a nightmare. Now, initially, everything appeared to be in order. The house was tidy, and you could tell that whoever lived there clearly took great care of it. As they advanced through the house and ultimately reached the main bedroom, police officers suddenly felt a chilling and morbid shift. There on the floor, officers found Joseph Galfi's body at the end of his bed. He was cold to the touch, lay in a pool of his own blood, and notably, was only wearing his underwear and a pair of socks. No surprise, Joe's property was immediately placed under lockdown, with his death now to be treated as a homicide. Several areas of his skull were fractured, including parts of the skull that are some of the strongest bones in the human body. It became evident that he had died from blunt force trauma from many blows over his body, including to his eyes, mouth, ears, the back of his head, neck, shoulders, arms, and ribs. All of these injuries confirmed that Joe had been brutally attacked, which, according to forensics, had even included being stomped on. The crime scene was rather odd, however. There were no signs of a break-in or struggle anywhere else on the property, and so, without any apparent motive, the authorities began examining the crime scene more closely. In the end, it was two small pieces of paper that caught their attention. On a pop-up table next to the sofa, detectives found a laptop, and underneath this laptop was an email and phone number that appeared to have been recently scribbled down, and alongside those details was a name no other than Lawrence Kai. This is a fairly typical procedure to any homicide investigation. If you see any names lying around, you grab the contact details and then get in touch. But after Googling Kai's name, officers realized that this guy was not the typical person you'd expect to hang out with a 73-year-old man. Found on the front page of Google, detectives found a YouTube video that was going viral and published only a few weeks prior. This video was taken shortly after a traffic accident that had happened on the other side of the country in Fresno, California. And, what do you know? The main character in this interview was Kai. The traffic accident left a man pinned between two vehicles. But, as you'll soon come to realize, as this interview goes on, the circumstances only get stranger.
I wanted to hear us. Yeah, talk to you. What do you want to talk about? What happened today? Well, went straight out of Dogtown, skateboarding, surfing it up. Before I say anything else, I want to say no matter what you've done, you deserve respect. Even if you make mistakes, you're lovable. And it doesn't matter your look skills or age or size or anything, you're worthwhile. No one can ever take that away from you. Now, this stuff right here, I was driving and I was in the passenger side of this car, and he's like, you know what? I come to realize I'm Jesus Christ, and I can do anything I want to. And watch this, bam! He smashed into this guy right there, pinned him in between that truck, and then buddy gets out. These two women are trying to help him. He runs up and he grabs one of them, man. Like a guy that big can snap a woman's neck like a pencil stick. So I ran up behind him with a hatchet, smash, smash, smash. Yeah, the lady said you saved her life. She's the one who got grabbed by that.
Can I get your name? And where you're from? If you don't mind.
I'm Kai.
Can I get spelling for
Straight out of Dogtown, K.I.
It is no surprise that this interview went entirely viral, especially back in the day when the internet was not filled with so much crazy content. I mean, after all, Kai was an eccentric being with a very interesting lifestyle, one who had resorted to violence in order to become a hero. So it's no surprise why this did the numbers on social media. Within that very same week, Kai's interview ran rampant across America like uncontrollable malware. Now, luckily, his video had nothing but peculiar characters and goofy vibes. However, it does make you wonder if all of his viewers knew how to protect themselves. And that is where the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN, comes in. Malware steals and destroys your data by infiltrating your device, typically through email attachments, software downloads, or operating system. With its dark web monitor and threat protection features, NordVPN has saved me countless times while researching these, at a huge discount in the description below. For him, he was hitchhiking around Fresno when someone along the road picked him up. The man was later identified to be Jet Simmons McBride, and standing at 6'4" and weighing over 300 pounds, he was an absolute unit of a man. Unfortunately though, he wasn't as wise as he was strong, as we will soon come to find out. Now, Kai's talkative flair would eventually get the better of Jet. It would get the jetter of him, so to speak. They shared various conversations throughout their journey, with Kai talking about his home-free lifestyle. You may or may not have been able to tell from the interview that Kai is somewhat of a hippie drifter, one who would live out of his backpack and off the kindness of others. So it's no surprise that, while on their trip, Kai rolled a sizable joint and eventually began to smoke. And of course, being the generous person that he was, he also offered to share some with Jet, an offer that
like some goddamn spice to me. What the fuck was that? No goddamn weed. What the fuck that was?
as an allegedly responsible driver.
I ain't here for the go by.
to
Never
slow
mind.
down. So, now we have a drifter and a man currently driving a vehicle who are both high on weed. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Well, eventually, Jet became way too buzzed, and would even reveal some secrets about him that nobody else knew. This included deep and dark secrets, including beating up his friends, racist remarks, and even sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl. So, Jet was now beginning to paint himself as a rather dangerous individual. And Kai, he was picking up on these red flags. And in that very moment, that was when Jet suffered a complete meltdown. Or, as psychologists would later say, a drug-induced psychosis. Now, when I say meltdown, I mean he entirely lost his shit. Apparently, he was driving and swerving all over the road, and even claimed to be Jesus Christ, an invincible superhuman. And you can probably guess where this eventually would go. That is when he swerved off the road and ran into a civil worker who was standing behind a truck.
Damn.
In a moment of quick thinking, Kai wrestled the keys from Jet, only to find him exiting the vehicle and continuing with his violent outburst. And as two women tried to intervene and help the civil worker, Jet then grabbed hold of one of them. Thinking and acting swiftly, Kai grabbed the hatchet from his bag and then delivered 2 blows to Jet's head, using the axe's blunt side to avoid things getting too messy. But when this failed to stop him, Kai then resorted to using the blade instead, with this blow inflicting a sizable bloody wound. Now, despite the chaos, Kai's actions stopped Jet from any further damage, aiding in his arrest by the time police arrived several minutes later. And it was during this tumultuous aftermath that the interview, later broadcast on the local news station, took place. As you can see, as Kai attempted to leave the scene, he was then stopped by the news anchor, Jacob Raisbeck. And recognizing the interview's mix of a positive message with bizarre circumstances, Jacob decided to share it with the broader audience by uploading it to YouTube. But little did anyone know that this viral footage would
That's why y'all don't need to smoke with everybody.
to lead the authorities across the country to a rather unlikely suspect. A homeless drifter who, while expressing violent tendencies on camera, still harbored well-meaning intentions. Now, although this footage wasn't enough to directly link Kai to the crime, a crucial clue was later found at the crime scene. Of course, that being the train ticket purchased just 1 day before Joseph's death. Armed with a timestamp and date of the ticket purchase, investigators contacted the corresponding station shortly after, where they then requested the surveillance footage over that time frame. Despite being uncertain to begin with, the investigators would eventually strike gold when the surveillance footage from the vending machine revealed that Joe Galfy had in fact purchased the ticket. The very same one found at the crime scene. In this surveillance footage, he engages in conversation with someone off camera before the other person eventually steps into view. A bedraggled figure with shoulder-length scraggly hair and a bandana can be seen. Of course, that being strikingly reminiscent to that of Kai in the interview. He then proceeds to brush his teeth in the middle of the station, and after a brief hug, almost as a gesture of gratitude, the two then depart together. Now, this surveillance footage led detectives to plenty of valid questions. I mean, why was Kai hanging out with a 73-year-old man?
Yeah.
How did the two meet? What was Joseph's motives? And, above all else, how would this end in his murder? Well, to be sure, there was only one way to find out. They would have to find Kai and then bring him in for questioning. However, this would be rather tricky to do. I mean, Kai did not have a home to go to. And to add to that, he had no ID, credit cards, or social security number. So, with that in mind, the authorities released this information to the public. And of course, everyone was shocked to see that he was now wanted for murder. All of this was in total contrast to his heroic actions just a few weeks prior. And in addition to this, he had just testified against Jet.
Alright, gentlemen, what would you rate her on a scale of 1 to 10?
So just in case y'all didn't know, the government is actually lying to us and stealing from us.
Hey, how much they paid him to do
With
that?
no hatchet in hand this time, the man known as
How much they paid him to do that? Y'all let me know, cause I do that. I do the ass and shit. Y'all gonna get tired of me. Yeah.
I took the stand, not before causing a few observers to chuckle.
Just a moment. Listen to the clerk as she states it up to you so that you can respond to it, and you only need one hand up, the right hand.
During his 2 hours of testimony, Kai explained in more detail the events leading up to the crash, including how he and Jet McBride stopped in the Tower District to buy and smoke marijuana. Kai then testified that just before the crash, McBride proudly told him about raping a 14-year-old girl.
He's like, well, I've come to realize I'm Jesus Christ. I can get away with anything I want to. Watch this. And I look up and there's a whole crew of construction people in front of me, and most of them jumped aside. One dude got pinned underneath.
While PG&E worker Rayshawn Neely was pinned, Kai says McBride then turned on several people who tried to help.
He's still holding on her, so I smashed him again. And he's still holding on her hair. I was like, that's your butt. I smashed real good hard.
Rayshawn Neely then talked about the pain he's been living in since that day. Then in a surprise move, as Neely wheeled out of the courtroom, McBride apologized.
Sorry, Rayshawn.
But then again, he ended violence by using more violence. So, with that in mind, was he capable of using his...
Bro, that weak ass, I'm sorry, bro. You had me pinned on ground. Fuck, nigga. I'm sorry. You could have did that when he was facing you, bro. Come on, bro. Look at this shit. Come on, bro. That shit weak. Come on now. I'm thinking you God and shit. You won't even let me... There you go.
But then again, he ended violence by using more violence. So, with that in mind...
You got pinned underneath.
Look, you right here.
PG&E worker Rayshawn Neely was...
You couldn't apologize when you were right there? In the man's face? You gotta wait till the man will... go away from... You know what I'm saying? Get away from you. Turn his back on you to tell him, I'm sorry.
Kai says McBride then turned on several people who tried to help.
He's still holding on her, so I smashed him again. And he's still holding on her hair. I was like, that's your butt. I smashed real good hard.
Rayshawn Neely then talked about the pain he's been living in since that day. Then in a surprise move, as Neely wheeled out of the courtroom, McBride apologized.
Sorry, Rayshawn.
But then again, he ended violence by using more violence. So, with that in mind, was he capable of using his aggression in more nefarious ways? Following his good work, Kai became a viral sensation, with everyone wanting to know him, with his official nickname being Kai the hatchet-wielding hitchhiker. However, little did anyone know that behind the facade of this carefree and loving gentleman was an extremely dysfunctional human being, one that would often abuse weed and alcohol. Unfortunately, Kai would often drink and smoke when...
It ain't nothing wrong with weed. Y'all gotta start doing that shit. Coffee house. Don't do that, coffee house. I was just not starting to fuck with your coffee house. Don't do it. And some people can't handle weed though, but it's like he would roll up some goddamn spice. He probably on some goddamn spice. Rebirth Island, back on Call of Duty. You know I'm finna get on that when I get out on the video.
The opportunity was available, and this wouldn't be more obvious than at the time when he had an appearance on TV, most notably the Jimmy Kimmel Show. In fact, in the days leading up to the show, Kai's unruly behaviour was
went to the Jimmy Kimmel Show
by the show's ambassadors. Recognised wherever he went, public outings inevitably led to crowds clamouring for photos with Kai. Yet, even amidst the glitz of Hollywood, his impulsive tendencies could never be contained. In a momentary lapse of attention from his escorts, Kai then proceeded to brazenly urinate in public on Hollywood Boulevard. Of course, much to the shock and surprise of bystanders. And after being rushed back to the hotel, he then wasted no time in indulging in a whole bottle of Jack Daniels. Recognizing the dangerous potential for public disturbance, one of his supervisors took it upon herself to offer him shelter in her own home before his Jimmy Kimmel interview. But even after this kind gesture, Kai continued to act and behave in a very unhinged manner. Upon arrival at the studio, he once again urinated in public. this time aiming at a sign leading to the set. Now, obviously, through these actions, it seemed that Kai harbored a disdain for celebrities. But the interesting thing here is that didn't stop him from leaning into their world. Despite, or maybe even perhaps because of his eccentricities, Kai became a well-sought-after guest, with his antics promising good television and publicity. And as you would likely imagine, the interview with Jimmy Kimmel unfolded in a manner that was very true to Kai's character. Following this interview, Kai was then handed a large sum of money for appearing on the show. Yet, aside from occasional snapshots shared by unsuspecting bystanders on social media, this marked the final public appearance of the infamous hatchet-wielding hitchhiker. And shortly after this, he quietly resumed his journey as a nomad. That would be until just...
He already a fuck up as it is. Motherfucker, you on this motherfucker platform really because you killed somebody and defended somebody. They don't know you a murderer yet, but why you on this platform and you drinking? Well, I be smoking too, but drinking and shit, pissing on the man's sign, disrespecting the man. You know what I'm saying? That could be your way out the hood.
A couple months later, and in May of 2013, his death was publicized, all with Kai being the prime suspect. Due to his recent publicity, it wouldn't actually take long for officers to find him, and only 3 days later, he was apprehended while trying to catch a bus in Philadelphia. The situation would only become stranger from here on out, though. During his interrogation, Kai was more than willing to tell the authorities exactly what happened. Of course, from his perspective. According to Kai, the two met in Times Square while at the Greyhound bus station. Apparently, Joe approached him before striking up a conversation. He asked Kai where he was heading, to which he replied, New Jersey. Apparently, Joe then offered to take him there for free, and even give him a place to stay for the night. As a homeless person without many options, Kai eventually accepted the offer. I mean, after all, what kind of threat could an elderly man be? And so, without much thought, the two then headed out to Joe's. Proving by the number of empty bottles at the crime scene, several beers and wine were shared. But according to Kai, after going to bed that night, he woke up to a rather nasty surprise.
He picked me up in New York. He says, "Oh, you're Luke Boss, you know, like, where are you from?" This and that. And I said, "Dogtown." He says, and I said I was going to New Jersey, and he said that he was headed to New Jersey too. So I went with him to his house, and when I was at his house, he gave me a bunch of beers, and then I got kind of sleepy right before bed. I woke up, and there's metallic taste in my mouth, and there's like cum going down inside my face, and I felt violated. I went over to Asbury to meet a friend, and she wasn't showing up. I called him, saying they didn't have any other place to go.
Now, obviously, this would have been a traumatic experience for Kai, if his story is to be believed. But the strange...
He what? I ain't whining about what he said, but he did what? If he unalived that man deserved it.
Thing is, carried on practically as usual. Joe
ain't no man gonna make up no shit like that.
Made Kai breakfast and even asked him where he plans to go next.
Ain't no, you can't make up no type of story like that. And then as a man, I feel like Kai telling the truth. That's something you ain't finna tell nobody that, let alone goddamn. Hell no, you ain't finna tell nobody nothing. You ain't even finna say nothing like that unless it's true for real. And he look like the type. Look at him.
And later that day, he even purchased a ticket for him to meet up with his friends in another neighborhood. This is where the surveillance footage captured at the train station comes in clutch. It was noted that, after buying his ticket, the two hugged. And after that, Joe then gave Kai his phone number, just in case he ever needed a place to stay. Later that evening, Kai's friends never showed up. And so, with nowhere to go, he decided to give Joe another call. He was back at his place by the late evening. And as it turns out, this would be the fateful night that only one of them would come out alive. According to Kai, Joe made them homemade burgers and several drinks. And again, according to him, it was in that moment that he blacked out.
I went and I ate some food with him. He had made some burgers, like some homemade burgers. And then I don't remember much after that. I woke up on his floor and he was over top of me trying to take my pants down, and I started hitting him. And I just blacked out.
Now,
are you tired of sleeping alone? You can meet beautiful women who live in your area. The app
Down bad.
The folks, when all else fails, simply claim that you blacked out. If you can't remember it happened, then surely you're still safe to remain in society.
Nah.
Right? Maybe I'll do that next time I screw up someone's coffee order. Apparently, Kai remembers nothing after he blacked out. And although he doesn't recall leaving the residence, he does remember eventually going to a diner. And of course, shortly after, that is when he was eventually arrested by the authorities. Kai's trial would take 5 years to arrive. During this time, he was hospitalized after suffering self-inflicted wounds. It is also confirmed that he tried to take his own life, which further exemplified the state of his mental health at the time. His trial commenced in April 2019, nearly 6 years after his initial arrest. Unfortunately, cameras were barred from the courtroom, likely due to confidentiality reasons or to diminish Kai's public exposure. Official documents suggest that Kai remained silent during the court proceedings. However, that did not stop the occasional sporadic outburst, especially when he disagreed with his legal counsel. This hinted at Kai's struggle to maintain self-control, and despite his insistence on representing himself, the judge denied his request at every opportunity. The defense argued that the incident was an act of self-defense, asserting that Mr. Galfi exploited Kai's vulnerabilities and dependencies. However, the autopsy findings, detailing the brutality of the beating, painted a very different picture, one that portrayed a scene of unbridled rage rather than self-defense. To add to that, Kai accused the court, including his defense team, of conspiring against him, alleging bias due to Mr. Galfi's status as a prominent attorney in the local area. Despite raising several conflicting points in his defense, several fair questions remained. For example, why was a rape kit administered to Mr. Galfi but not to Kai? Why weren't forensic tests conducted on the glasses and bottles Kai handled? And why wasn't semen found at the crime scene tested to confirm its source? Ultimately, none of these questions were answered, and while facing a jury, Kai received a sentence of 57 years for the murder of Joseph Galfi. Upon delivering the sentence, Judge Kitt remarked, "You created this public image of a surfing-free spirit, unshackled by the constraints of materialism and consumption. However, underneath that free spirit, the jury saw another side of you. You are a powder keg of explosive rage, a cold-blooded, calculated, and callous killer." While still on record, Kai himself replied with, "This has been nothing but a sham trial. You have railroaded an innocent man. Shame on you." Whether he wants to accept accountability or not for his actions, Kai will now spend the rest of his life behind bars. A small price to pay for taking another man's life. Granted, this case is quite the strange one, and I don't think we'll ever know what really happened between the two. All of Joe's friends claim that he was very simply a man of the law, which makes sense because he was a professional attorney. As for his sexuality, it is noted that he had several male friends that would stay overnight quite often, with one of them even living in the property shortly before. So it is probable that Joe and Kai were having sex with each other, but it was most likely consensual. Now, it could be argued that Joe was using his bed to lure vulnerable people into his home. However, on the flip side, it may have just been an act of kindness that eventually came with benefits. Either way, we will probably never know the full story. Joe is not here to tell us after all. It is possible that, within the legal community, a sense of camaraderie exists, especially towards one of their own. Joseph's extensive tenure in the industry and his vast network of connections do suggest his prominence and influence. And while there is little dispute that Kai's assault led to Joseph's death, it is crucial to consider the context of the attack. Unfortunately, this aspect will always leave the case somewhat open-ended. Despite Joseph's esteemed reputation, both professionally and within his community, including his role as a hospitable neighbor, there seems to be no apparent motive behind his tragic demise. So in that case, why did Kai do it? Was it self-defense? There are several discussions online that depict Joe as a potential predator, one who is accused of exploiting a younger man's vulnerabilities and vices for personal gain. However, saying that, it is undeniable that Kai murdered a 73-year-old man without being in any immediate danger, a fact that was even admitted by him during his interrogation. Kai's culpability remains unquestionable, and so, despite multiple appeals, his efforts to overturn the sentence have consistently been rejected. Nevertheless, Kai maintains a substantial online following, and still receives supporters' donations, letters, and gifts. While incarcerated, Kai has dedicated himself to physical fitness and tirelessly advocating for reducing his 57-year sentence. Continuing to assert his innocence, he regularly updates his YouTube channel, aptly named Kai the Hitchhiker, with all of his videos engaging with the public and presenting his own side of the story. I'll leave a link below, as personally I find it quite interesting to see one of these stories come to life beyond the episode. To this day, his YouTube channel has 6,500 subscribers. He's uploaded 262 videos so far, with his most recent being only 2 days ago. In some of these videos, he even shows his various workouts while behind bars. Now, I admire the creativity, but please work on his bar extensions.
That's crazy.
And so concludes the case.
Yeah, I thought I wasn't gonna say shit. How the fuck this nigga got more subscribers than me and he in jail? It's crazy. Honestly though, if that was true though, and it wasn't consensual, and he did that, no Diddy. He did that Diddy, no Diddy. He did Diddy, but no Diddy on him. You feel me? Yeah, he had the right, he had the right to smoke him. For sure. Cause I would have. Trim. What you think this is? But yeah, man, that's definitely crazy. Like I say, I seen the interview when it first came out. For those y'all young kids, y'all don't know about goddamn memes, whatever they call it, memes and shit. Y'all don't know about memes. Like when it first started, bro, that shit was crazy, and you ain't had no choice but to see anything that was popping on that time because it ain't big like it is now. Like memes and shit ain't big like it was back then. Like when it first started, you feel me? Like, so I remember seeing the news thing too on TV and shit. But yeah, man, give me your thumbs up, like, subscribe, Copper House, and do your thing. I ain't really know too much about this story. I didn't know there was a dark side to this story at all, actually. But now I do. That being said, see y'all motherfuckers on the next video. Let's ride, man.